Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is convective weather forecaster Nathan Kitchens here, dropping by with a weather discussion on this Wednesday afternoon. Our weather over the past week has been dominated by a meridional jet stream pattern where we've had a big ridge across the west. We've had very warm, hot temperatures across parts of California over the past week. I know LA and San Diego had some very hot temperatures over the weekend, and over the east we've had some colder weather here over the past week. Even though this has, of course, been a fairly mild winter, we had some cold weather here over the past week. Boston got down to about -9, I believe, or -7. I honestly can't remember for sure, but I know it was below zero, well below zero, Sunday morning. Very cold past weekend as we had a little piece of the polar vortex displacement there in the northeast U.S. But we've seen a pretty drastic recovery in temperatures. Boston got into the 50s yesterday, so some areas in the northeast saw nearly a 70-degree temperature difference from Sunday morning to where we were yesterday afternoon. So that is pretty substantial, staggering, if you really. So anyway, looking at the overall pattern for today, you can see a big ridge here across the Rockies, and that ridge is going to expand here through the central part of the U.S. here over, throughout our Thursday. We're going to see some really warm temperatures here in the plains tomorrow, 70s, 80s. It's going to feel great, feel like spring. Let's go forward here and just show you what the upper level patterns look like. This is looking at your heights anomalies here. So where you see the orange colors here, that's where we have higher than average heights. Here we have lower than average heights here in the blue. So let's go forward here throughout the rest of today and tomorrow. A big ridge across the central U.S. Going to be very nice and warm here for tomorrow and into Friday. And basically what you're going to notice here, the jet stream pattern in general is going to become more zonal, flatten out, west to east. It's not going to be an anomalous pattern where we have a big ridge, big trough. It's really just going to be a west to east progressive jet stream heading into the weekend. So that means the country will be flooded with warm Pacific air from the west coast to the east coast. So everybody's going to get in on some milder temperatures heading into the weekend for us. And next week, well, actually, this is still going through the weekend. You can see that as general west to east flow across the U.S., keeping us nice and mild for the most part. We'll start to see some things change next week. Here we are by Tuesday, starting to see a bit more of a trough developing here in the southern plains as we head into Tuesday. Now we're really starting to see that develop here into Wednesday, and that's going to be a very interesting time frame to watch for the east, as we do have the potential for a storm system to develop here along the Gulf Coast. The pattern favors that, pushes to the northeast, and this could be a winter storm threat for parts of the east. We have really good agreement on the models that there's going to be some sort of storm to deal with here towards the middle part of next week. At some point could be a winter storm threat for some areas in the east. Where is the big question? And I'm going to talk more about that here in a minute. But I also want to show you something interesting here. These are the sea surface temperature anomalies here. Clearly you can see our El Nino here still taking shape, starting to decline here, or our El Nino's in the weakening phase, but still a strong El Nino currently here. You can see the warmest waters here in the central and getting more of a west-based El Nino here. But one thing I want to talk about here is this warm blob that you might have heard about here in the Northeast Pacific that's pretty much just gone away here over the past several months. In the winter of 2013 and 14, we had a huge warm, what scientists came to call as the blob, because we had just this resilient ridge across the west. You remember the winter of 2013, 2014 was brutally cold across the east. A big reason for that was this persistent ridging here across the west, and it's led to very warm ocean temperatures. And we had a very big blob of warmer than average waters here, much warmer than average waters here in the Northeast Pacific. And of course, basically what happened here was the ridge weakened the winds enough that the normal wind-driven churning of the sea eased up, and those winds usually promote upwelling, which brings that colder water from deep below up towards the surface, persistent ridge basically shut down the circulation. Microscopic phytoplankton was starved of nutrients due to the lack of upwelling here. So with fewer phytoplankton then you can have problems down the line here where the fish are now struggling with lack of food here. And then you have problems right down the line there when it comes to the marine life. So it was a very kind of a big event that we've had here in the Pacific here with that warm blob. But that warm blob's pretty much gone now. It's gone. And one part of that is the El Nino has allowed the kind of the normal circulation that we typically see to take place here. Stronger winds coming in south from the Aleutians here in Alaska has allowed that persistent warm blob to pretty much go away here and fade out. And now you can actually see some colder than average conditions here. Still warmer than average here along the coast, no doubt about that. But that really big blob of warm air, it's gone. So that's definitely some good news there. Just something I wanted to something interesting I wanted to talk about here in the video today. And there's our El Nino. It's going to be continuing to decrease here over the coming months, and eventually by next fall and winter, La Nina could set in. So what a drastic change we could be seeing here in the coming months. So it's going to be interesting to watch those sea surface temperatures here in the coming months. Alright, so let's talk about our forecast over the next several days. We're going to see, again, a big warm-up coming across much of the country later on this week. I did want to throw in here, we do have a marginal threat for some severe weather today. Mainly going to be a threat for some isolated damaging winds here along the west coast of Oregon for today. So we'll watch for that. Looking at our precipitation here off the GFS model for the rest of this week. For today, we're going to see, that's for next week, excuse me, let's go back here. For today, we're looking at pretty quiet weather across much of the central and east. There's a system here coming on shore across the west. We're going to see some pretty good mountain snow here in the Sierra Nevada, California for our Thursday. And then as we head into Friday, a progressive system here pushing through the northern Midwest here as we head into Friday and Friday night. And another thing you notice here are these really tight isobars. When you see that tight packing of isobars, that means we have a very tight pressure gradient, and we're going to see some very strong winds here on Friday. That's something I want to definitely kind of talk about here. Let me go back here to Thursday. You can see right here in the central part of the country, this screams a red flag warning potential or a wildfire danger with dry air in place and warm temperatures and very strong winds. We're going to have an enhanced fire threat to this area on Thursday with those strong winds. And as we head into Friday, the stronger winds shift farther east here across parts of the Ohio Valley. It's going in Great Lakes, where that wind's going to be howling on Friday with wind gusts potentially 50 miles per hour. So very strong winds. And then as we head into Saturday, the low pressure pushes off to just off here in Ontario and Quebec, and we're going to see winds the pressure gradient really dying down here across the country, so that's some good news there. And then as we head into Sunday, we're going to have a weak system zipping through the central part of the country here, a little bit of rain or snow here in the Great Lakes, not a big deal, very weak system. And we're going to stay mild really through the weekend. And as we head into next week, I talked about that change coming next week where we're going to see a trough here developing again across the central and east part of the country. Probably a storm system developing here along the Gulf Coast. That storm will eventually move to the northeast. Don't focus on the exact track right now. This is the operational GFS. Just get the general idea that there's probably going to be some sort of storm developing here next week somewhere in the eastern U.S., and this could be a winter storm threat for some areas. But where is the big question right now as models continue to kind of shift from run to run. Also, a good thing to look at this point in time are the ensembles. Basically, you take a model and you change the initial conditions slightly for each model run here, and this is the ensemble package here up to GFS. And you can see some pretty good agreement here. There's going to be some sort of storm to work with here. This is for Wednesday afternoon, a week from right now. This is what the model is showing. You can see we have varying solutions as far as this low pressure track. Ultimately, that's going to affect where the heavy snowpack will be. And all those sort of things. So, but a decent agreement here, not just the GFS, but I also looked at the Canadian model, also looked at the European. All the main global models are in agreement that there's going to be a storm to work with next week coming out of the Gulf, pushing into the eastern U.S., and that could be a pretty good storm, good winter storm for some areas. So that's something we'll watch as we get closer. I also want to throw in the temperature anomalies here for the next several days. You can see pretty average here, a little bit cooler than average across the Great Lakes for today, warm across the central and west, and that warmth just expands here in the coming days. That jet stream is going to flatten out. Look at these temperature anomalies looking very warm for the weekend across much of the country, going to be running warmer than where we should be for this time of year. And then as we get into next week, that's when we start to see the temperatures cool back down here in the central and eastern part of the country. I'm going to wrap this video up for now. Thanks for checking out our latest weather discussion.